And I think from the agenda standpoint, I think we're then ready to go straight to your presentation. So yeah, welcome. Thank you for coming to our committee. Really appreciate that.
Great, thank you for having us. My name is Viviana Baeza, and I'm the outreach coordinator. And we do have Ereida Ataide here. You want to say hi, Ereida?
Hi, my name is Ereida Ataide, and I'm the office manager. I am responsible for the customer service team and the outreach team.
So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen.
Looks good.
So I didn't get your name. Was it Scott?
Yes, I'm Scott
Okay,
Elrod.
Scott. Thank you. As Scott mentioned, our presentation tonight is going to be very simple, straight to the point, but informative at the same time. It's going to be about what goes where, so making sure that we put the appropriate material in the corresponding carts so that we can have a great recovery of material and reduce what goes to the landfills. Like I said, we're going to go over how things get collected and how they get processed and why it is that our program is the way it is, because there have been many questions with SB 1383 coming up, and hopefully this is going to clarify everything. And then we're also going to touch on a couple of practices that will make recycling better for recovery material. And at the end, we will have time for some questions, and then we'll also touch upon what to do with hazardous waste and medical waste. So if you guys have any questions throughout the presentation, make sure to write them down. We will have time to answer those questions at the end. So the first cart that we're going to start with is the gray cart. The gray cart is what we call the mixed compostables. A lot of people get confused, but right now I'm going to explain why it's called mixed compostables. What we allow in the gray cart is food waste. So that will be food scraps, leftover dinners, coffee grinds, eggshells, bones. Any food waste is allowed to go in the gray cart. We also have soiled paper that can go in there. So if you have any disposable plates that are dirty and not clean, we want them to go in the gray cart. Any dirty milk cartons, juice boxes, wax paper, that also is allowed to go in the gray cart. And then garbage, which would be anything that doesn't get recycled. Diapers, styrofoam, packing peanuts. You also see that we allow fabrics in the gray cart, but before putting them in the gray cart, we do encourage people to donate them so that they can get a chance to get reused before getting disposed. Things like a hose can go in there. Also, we do allow a little bit of outdoor waste to go into the gray cart. And that would be, for example, if you had a potted plant, you could toss it in the gray cart. If you had a project and a little bit of wood left, that can go in there. Some rocks. However, if you are doing like a makeover of your backyard, front yard, that would be a big project where you would probably need a debris box. And then also, in addition to this, the residents who have the two-cart system, which would be on-premise service or limited accessibility, they're also allowed to have their yard waste go in this gray cart because they won't have the green cart. And so it's pretty simple. We don't put the food waste in the green cart, we put it in the gray cart. And like I mentioned, food waste, soiled paper, garbage, yard waste. And for the green cart, we only want yard trimmings. So we want them to be clean. So plant trimmings, if you're cutting your trees, you're mowing your lawn, grass clippings, all of that, we want to go in the green cart. For that, I'll touch more upon that in the next couple of slides, but it will get turned into a different grade of compost. So we don't want it to get contaminated with any food waste. And then for the blue cart, we do have the recyclable material. So metal, glass can go in here, plastics, papers. We want the material in the blue cart to be clean and dry. So clean paper, dry paper. For the plastics that go in there, any plastic jars, for example, the peanut butter jars, the yogurts, we want to try and scrape off as much food as we can off of it so that it can be as clean as possible. It doesn't have to be squeaky clean, but just that there's not a lot of residue in there. For metal, we can have items like a toaster, aluminum cans, aerosols that don't have any stuff in it anymore, that can also go in there. We do allow aseptic containers to also go in the blue cart. The bottom line for the recyclable cart, like I said, is clean and dry. And then also a lot of people don't know that they can fit small electronic waste items in there as if it loosely fits in the cart. So calculators, keyboards, phones, those can get also in the blue cart. And then, okay, so once we collect the material, where does it go? So we have one site in San Jose with 3 different facilities. Items from the gray cart are gonna go to the mixed compostable MRF, the materials recovery facility. And right there, we process 90 tons per hour, and there's an up to 75% recovery from this line. The yard waste collected from the green cart, that's gonna go into the yard trimmings facility. And there we process 70 tons per hour, and there's an up to 98% recovery. And then the material from the blue cart will go to the recyclable facility. And right there, we process 45 tons of material per hour, and there's up to 85% recovery. So that's pretty self-explanatory right there. And then how does it actually get turned into compost, the material that we recover? So from the gray cart, we process it at the MRF, and then all of the organic waste and compostable material gets sent to ZBest, which is also a Greenwaste company out in Gilroy. Once it's over there, it gets further processed to take out any non-organic materials, and then it gets processed in the windrows, and then it gets turned into landscape compost, different types of landscape compost. Now, everything from the green cart also gets processed at our facility in San Jose, and then gets further processed at ZBest as well. And that gets turned into organic compost. And that's one of the main reasons that we don't want any contamination of food waste in the green cart, because the organic compost is going to get used for growing food, agriculture. And then right here it says OMRI listed. OMRI stands for Organic Materials Review Institute. They are the ones that basically inspect the compost and make sure that it's up to the standards to be organic compost. Okay, now we're on to these are pretty simple tips, nothing too complicated. But once again, we only want recyclable material in the blue cart. We don't want any soiled paper. And that includes, for example, the pizza boxes. If it's greasy, and if you want to recover the clean piece of cardboard, you can rip the top, put the clean cardboard in the blue, and then the greasy cardboard is going to go into the gray cart. For the liquids, we don't want any remaining liquids in any sort of bottles that are going to go into the blue cart. So a pretty basic rule is if you tip it over and there's still something coming out, you don't want anything to drop out of that bottle. And then, like I mentioned earlier, the peanut butter jar is the trickiest one because it's pretty much the hardest to scrape out. But you can use your napkins that you use to just take as much as you can out of there. The cleaner the material, the higher quality material will be to get turned into whatever it gets turned to when it gets recycled. So that's what you want to do with containers that have food in it. And then you could also use some water. So like I mentioned, scrape, wipe it first. If you collect secondhand water, you could dump a little bit in there with some soap, shake it up, and then dry it and then put it in the blue cart. And then if it's a light day and you have extra space in your dishwasher, then you can go ahead and put it in there as well. So some of the frequently asked questions, number one, should recyclable material be bagged or loosed? We prefer loose because it's easier to recover and to inspect once it gets to the MRF. The only exceptions are film plastics, so like Ziploc bags, grocery plastic bags, and shredded paper. So the shredded paper, we want it to be bagged in a clear bag so that they can identify it and take it out and put it with a paper pile. For the film plastics, we also kind of want to try and have it in a clear bag so that they can identify it as film plastics and not think that it's a garbage bag. So those are the two exceptions that we would want something to be bagged in the blue cart. For small plastics like disposable forks and spoons and knives, plastics that are smaller than 2.5 inches, they can't get recycled at our processing facility because they can't get recovered. They're too small. So we don't want those in the blue cart. And if it's a bottle with the same type of material, we do encourage the lids to stay on so that the bottle caps don't get lost. And so when it comes to multi-layered material, for example, the snack packaging that a lot of kids' snacks have, chips, juice bags, those actually go in the gray cart because it's mixed material. So they can't do much with when it's different types like plastic and paper, aluminum all together. Plastic bubble wrap with the paper envelopes like the Amazon packages. If it's that plastic with the bubble inside, we want that also in the gray cart. Aseptic containers would go in the blue cart. And then another example is like the wax paper that would also go in the gray cart. For batteries and oil, batteries, we can take household batteries like the AAA, the AA, the C and the Ds. But we want them in a clear Ziploc bag and placed on top of the cart. On the service day, they will collect them. And if you do have motor oil and filters, they should be in a, like in the jug that you see capped. And then for the filters, you can request a bag, but we also will collect that as long as the lids and caps are on and the filters are in the bag. So on the service day, you place it next to the blue cart and they will take them, but we don't want those inside the gray cart because they cause problems with the machinery. Other household items like cleaning supplies, gardening chemicals, paint, fluorescent lights, larger batteries. We do want you guys to call the San Mateo County. On our website, on the Greenwaste website, we do have the resource for household hazardous waste and sharps, where you can go on there and it takes you to the San Mateo website. And there are several, they have a program where you can either have a curbside pickup or schedule an appointment or a drop-off location. But we do encourage residents to call that number so that they can find out how to properly dispose of them. We don't want them in any of the carts. And then, like I said, medicines and sharps also are not accepted in any other carts. If you go to the website on this page, it will guide residents on how to properly dispose of them. So lastly, like I mentioned, we do have our website where residents can take a look at the videos that have been made. There's a virtual tour of the MRF of the 3 different facilities, and you get a better visual of how it is that the different technologies are used to recover the material, it's a little bit hard to understand. I understand how everything is recovered if it's all in one cart, but those videos do a good job and give a good perspective of how it is that material actually gets recovered. And then the compostable material gets sent to ZBest, and what's left is landfill. And then if individuals have questions on specific items, we also have a what goes where guide on the website. It has a long list of different items that go in the carts. And then if they still have questions, we do encourage them to give us a call. We do have a great customer service team who is always willing to help residents figure out where to properly dispose of the item that they're looking for. And then you can also scan this QR code to follow us on social media. We do periodically post informational blogs, Facebook posts, Instagram posts. So it's just a fun way to stay connected with Greenwaste. And so that pretty much brings us to the end of this. Like I said, it was going to be very simple and short, but to the point. So I will stop sharing my screen and we can open it up for questions.
I suspect we have quite a few questions. Maybe we could start with folks from the Sustainability Committee if you have questions, and then we'll open it up to people from the public. Lovey, Rebecca, go for it.
Yeah, I do have a couple questions.
Yeah.
I just wanted to confirm that the aseptic packaging can actually be recycled, because that seems new.
Yes.
I can take this one. I can take this one.
Yeah.
So the aseptic containers are actually not recyclable. They're trash. But they are collected in the blue container because they're easier to pull out from the line as it's going through the MRF. It's easier for us to capture that material through that line. Same thing with things like ceramics or certain items that are technically considered trash. They're not, there's no market for them for us to recycle, but because it's easier for us to grab them from the blue, cart line, it's easier to recover and not have it end up in the mixed compostable pile.
I see. Okay, thank you. And then the second question I have is, my garbage day was today, so I actually happened to be outside, or I made a point of running outside when I heard the truck to actually watch what was happening. And it was kind of interesting because I have all three types of trash cans. And what happened is the truck drove up my street. He opened the big compartment, and the compartment itself has two bins along the street, and then behind those two bins is another area. So he shut the two bins in the front, and he put the recyclables into the back compartment, and then he opened up those two compartments in the front next to the street, and into those compartments he put both the compostable and the green waste together into those compartments. So I'm just a little curious about, here I'm going to all this trouble separating compostables from green waste, but yet it ended up in the same section in the truck. So I'm curious about.
I can look into that for you, Rebecca. Maybe offline you can share with us your address and stuff, and we can check with the route supervisor to see what's going on, because yeah, we do have split body trucks where we can separate the materials and have them be separate. So that's something we can definitely look into for you.
Okay, and then I guess my third question is, it seems that recovering stuff that's dry in the recyclable is much better. You're much better able to resell it or find a market for it. So I wonder, I mean, obviously our contract is done and it's out for quite a few more years, but there's many of us that actually separate our paper from all the other recyclables, and then at the end, right on the day of things, we dump them back in together, which is obviously defeats the purpose of separating them, but it just so happens that I do that at home, or I've done that in the past. So, you know, it seems like it would be a good idea in the future to think about allowing residents to, you know, have another recycling can that separates paper and really dry things from stuff that may have moisture on it, you know, for whatever reason.
Yeah, this kind of reminds me back when I was a little kid. We used to have when we used to live in San Jose, we used to have these crates. And I remember we used to sort like paper products, glass products, aluminum
Yes.
products. Yeah, no, I mean, the way everything is being done right now, that's why Viviana was mentioning, you know, it's very important to make sure that if you have any cans, bottles, that they're dry, because you know, you go through all the trouble of sorting out the paper, making sure it's clean, dry, and then I go, you know, I drop my soda bottle in there with still some soda, and what's going to happen is your car might be clean, then it might not have any liquids, but we go down to Viviana's house, you know, she left the soda in there, we dump her car, it all gets mixed in the truck, and as it's all getting compacted in there, it's, you know, the liquid's going to spread, the peanut butter's going to smear. So yeah, it's definitely, that's why we're really pushing for, you know, keeping things clean, keeping things dry, no liquids, and then, you know, away from all the food, because it does affect the load, and it does affect the overall load.
But is there any kind of thought in the future to provide trucks that have a better separation, and to allow residents to actually, you know, even at a reduced rate, for example, to do some of this processing ahead of time or at home, as opposed to sending it off where then it has to be processed in your facilities? And
Yeah,
and stuff can't be recovered because it's gotten wet or whatever.
yeah, no, that's definitely a good idea. And I think, you know, when you're going through so many tons of material, you know, how many trucks are we going to end up having going down your road? One to collect paper, another to collect glass. You know, you got to look at the emission side of things on there too, carbon footprint and all that. So I think the way we're trying to do it is a way to kind of consolidate things. I don't think we're close to it. It's just it's you know, we also have to consider the efficiency of the collection.
Okay, thank you.
Got a few questions. So let's say I have a baton, which is, it's metal, right? But the ends are rubber or something. And let's say the rubber is integrated with it. So that's recyclable stuff potentially, or it's plastic on the ends. Do I throw that in the recycle bin? And if I do, what happens to it? If it's got two materials and they're sort of bound together, what happens to it?
As the MRF, as it's making its way through the line at the MRF, it'll end up, you know, we're sorting out cardboard, we're sorting out paper, we're sorting out different types of plastic, aluminum, and I believe certain items like this that are not, you know, recyclable, that are, because they're mixed materials or they're stuck together,
Right.
they're gonna get you know, they'll end up through the landfill side of things. Yeah, they'll eventually get sorted out.
Landfill. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you're grinding stuff up in order to break it up into the constituent materials to be able to recover stuff like that, right?
No.
What if it's a glass bottle and has a plastic top and the top is on the bottle?
It'll most likely end up in the glass
Okay.
section. And again, once it goes, you know, there's different sections of the MRF where it's shaking things, it's moving things along. Things like glass, we prefer that they don't have any lids when you throw them in there.
Yeah.
Just throw you know, take the lid off, throw the jar in there, because
Sure.
we know it's you know, that way it's just the jar.
Mhm.
If it's something like a plastic bottle with a plastic top, leave the top on.
Mhm.
That way it all kind of makes it through together.
And for plastics, given the number of different plastics that exist, are you actually doing the separation into, you know, PTFE and PVC and at the MRF?
Yeah, there's optical sorters.
Mhm.
There's, that look at the density, that look at the different, they have different things that they look at. There's the air pushers that kind of, sort things out. We
Hmm.
have yeah, so there's different ways to capture the different types of material, and it's all kind of, there's different little sections at the MRF that kind of look for it, as well as the people that are out there sorting on the line. They're literally going through, and one person's responsible for one thing, another person's responsible for looking out for another material, and they're going through and picking, and it goes through, it's not just like one person sorting through it. It's a bunch of people. It's a lot of different little pieces of equipment that are kind of searching for different pieces of different types of material.
Got it. Okay, and my last question is, if you look at the, I guess the US average on recycling of plastics, the fraction of plastics that actually make it back into new products, I've understood is something really low, like 9%. So presumably there are certain plastics, there's a high enough value for them that people want them. And then there are other plastics where maybe they don't want them. So what happens after you, right? I mean, you've separated things out. I mean, are all of these plastic streams ones that somebody's going to pay you for, or some of them ones that go to another party and then eventually end up in a landfill because they're not high enough value, or what's the ultimate disposition, I guess, of the stuff?
Yeah, so this is where it gets very tricky with, people who come and tell you, oh, it's recyclable. It could be something that's recyclable, but if there's no market for it, we
Yeah.
can't do anything with it.
Sure.
It does us no good. And that's the reality of things. For example, styrofoam.
Right.
A lot, it's something that throws people off because it has the little arrows, with the number in there, and they say, well, it's recyclable. It's, but styrofoam, nobody wants styrofoam.
Yep.
So we have to landfill it.
Right.
So yeah,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, so whenever there's a market for it, we do have, the MRF manager, everybody, they're constantly looking for markets,
Mm-hmm.
where they can take the material, where it could be, who's gonna recycle it. Unfortunately, if there is no market or it's just not moving, we
Yeah.
can't do much with it. But
Sure.
because our material is so clean, that
Mhm.
also helps people who are buying the material. If they're gonna buy a bale of plastic or cardboard or whatever, and they know that we have a good trend of having clean material, they know that what they're buying from us is going to end up, they're not going to find any surprises in the middle of the bale, or it's going to be dirty, or
Yeah.
the quality is going to be good.
And so what fraction of the plastic materials that you are able to pull out actually do get purchased?
Oh, you know what? I don't have the actual numbers for that.
And I would assume if somebody's willing to pay money for it, it means there's a value, and so it's going to get utilized. And if it doesn't get purchased, then it's going to go to the landfill. So it'd be interesting to understand what's the volume fraction of the total plastic that is acquired by somebody versus the stuff that isn't acquired. That would be really interesting.
We can look into that for you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Lovey, you had a hand up.
Yeah,
And Walt has a hand up too. Just
is
go
my
ahead.
audio on?
Yeah.
I just, my question's just simply, of the gray cart stuff, what proportion ends up in a landfill?
We recover, what was the percentage, Viviana, that we recover?
It was 78%, 75.
So 25% goes to a landfill and you recover 75% of the gray cart contents?
Right.
Okay, and where's the landfill?
That's a good question.
A
So
lot of the stuff goes to, some of it goes to Monterey, some of it goes to Newbie.
To where?
Newbie Island and in Monterey.
all right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, Walt?
In terms of recyclability of plastics, does the number make any difference?
Yeah, so for example, if you have number, I think 6 is styrofoam. We don't, there's no market for it, so we can't recycle it. But mostly, instead of really focusing on the number, we look at, things like styrofoam we can't recycle. But if it's, a hard plastic versus film plastic, that could be recyclable. And that's kind of more or less what we're having the residents engage on, because if you kind of go down the rabbit hole of checking the numbers, some things don't have numbers, then there's exceptions. Like if you have a piece of film plastic that is dirty versus a piece of film plastic versus that's clean and dry, it's going to determine which container it goes into.
Okay, great. Maybe we could open it up to anybody else who's attending the meeting that has an interest in asking a question. If you do, the best thing to do would be to go to the bottom of the Zoom screen under reactions and choose the hand raising reaction. Any other questions from folks? Maybe not. Oh, Brooke has a question. Brooke, please go ahead.
Hi friends, this is so great. I'm actually here with Bonnie tonight to talk about compost later. So this is quite lovely that this presentation was happening now. I just had a question or a little bit of a concern that Viviana, whenever you mentioned that the yard waste ends up becoming green waste that would be used for say vegetable gardens. So I'm an edible gardener myself. I have an edible landscape company. And my concern with that is that so many people have pesticides and herbicides that they use on their yard waste. So how do you make sure that it can be certified organic whenever, it includes items like Roundup?
Yeah. So what makes this certified is, I'm going to go back to the OMRI Institute, the Organic Materials Review Institute. They're actually a nonprofit organization and they provide independent review of the products. So they are the ones that go out and test the compost and do all of that, digging up the information. Like they have to make sure it is for organic use only. So it's pretty much like we don't decide that, but OMRI does. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, it does. And I'm sure that there probably is some type of annual report that comes with that. Like, we get a report about our water quality and the, parts per million of this chemical or that chemical. So there probably is some type of annual report that you could provide.
We can provide, and yeah, if this is correct, we have been able to get an analysis of the compost. And that's what we get. And we do actually, we can request one.
Okay, and then I had one last question for you, if I have enough time. Is it possible, instead of getting I know that the town has received bags of the compost back, is it possible to get it in bulk form straight from the facility so that it wouldn't be, and we would bag our own or people would refill buckets or containers? It just seems so wasteful to have this stack and stack and stack of plastic bags when we're trying to eliminate so much plastic in town.
Yeah, that makes sense. If the town is interested in a loose compost giveaway for next year, because we already did the one for this year, but that's something that we can talk to the town about and coordinate. But it would definitely be an option.
We prefer the loose compost as well.
Yeah.
Yes, I bet you do. Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for that information and everything that you shared with us this evening. Was really informative. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, any other questions from people? If not, I'm going to stop the recording. Oh, do you have a question, Marianne?
I have one question. What if
Yeah.
people would like to do a tour of the facility?
So right now, due to COVID, we still haven't resumed tours at the MRF. But once we do resume, hopefully sometime soon, I don't have a definite date of when that is going to be. We will let the town know so that we can schedule the tours and get them started.
And how many people per tour?
Ereida, is that
I
normally
think
like 5?
Yeah, it's,
Small?
I think, yeah, they're not very large groups. They tend to be more on the smaller side. Normally we prefer, if it's gonna be like adults, because
Right.
you're going through the MRF, there's a lot of moving equipment, things that could, fall out. So there's, protective gear and all that. So, yeah, it's maybe 5 to 10 people.
Okay, so this committee and a few others.
Yeah, and we can confirm that once we are able to start doing tours again, we can get in touch with you guys and kind of confirm the group size and all that and what would be required.
That would be great. Thank you.
And then I have one other question.
Sure.
It's from a resident. They were asking about what could be put in green waste. In other words, can they put corn husks that were shucked from a corn on the cob, or trimmings like from cooking a head of cauliflower, orange peels, that sort of thing? Can that go in the green waste, or is that only in the mixed compostable?
Yeah, we want that in the mixed compostable.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Really appreciate the presentation and the Q&A with the two of you. So I'm going to stop the recording.